Oh my God. I'll tell you what's juicy.
Are you just playing GTA over there whilst we chat?
Is there going to be jokes here, or is this just going to be him like airing out, like it basically going to his therapist for an hour?
But for now, I'm going to go and find a former racehorse that's out in pasture and to give it one final ride. No, that really didn't come out right, did it? Everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. I am your host, Gabe Cook, and joining me as ever are the wonderful Martin Goodwin-Sharman and
Hello.
Grant Hutchison.
Hello.
This week we will be speaking to the wonderful Holly Hilton of Find and Foster's Ciders from down in Devonshire. And finally, we'll be going back to the speak pipe to answer some of your burning questions. But first, well, the big news, you all know what it is. Well, actually, no, you don't know. I've moved house again. This is the third house move in just over 12 months. It's not necessarily planned, or it's how things have kind of, worked out in this COVID space. And, initially like Devon, where we first started off, whereby I lost a few episodes because the internet was so bad. I thought that was going to be, well, maybe it was my fault too.
The manor house.
Yeah, the manor house. The manor days. And then, I thought that moving to within like almost a stone's throw of Bristol, that the internet would get better. It did not. It got worse. And I think I did actually do one recording here, tethering off my phone, which was not much fun. So coming temporarily to here in another bit of Somerset. We're testing out the internet for the first time tonight, and hope.
Oh no.
Oh.
What's happened?
Fuck off.
I think he's frozen.
He's taking a piss.
dropped out.
He's taking a piss. That was good. That was a long one.
I think I blinked, which possibly gave it away.
Did you not breathe in before you did it? That looked like you were on the out breath.
I was
Shit.
so excited.
So excited to do it.
I got so excited to play a game. Nearly got you. Nearly, or not. That was just a little joke. I froze then. The internet, I'm obviously going to completely stymie it now and say the internet seems to be holding up quite well. So hopefully we're in for a good show. And that is how exciting my week has been. I've moved house and I've got moderate internet. Let's ask Jeeves as to what else has been going on. Martin Goodwin-Sharman, how has your week been?
Good. For me, the only thing really is my favourite comic ever has been made into a TV show, and I've started watching that called Sweet Tooth. And I'm torn. I'm torn. I have to watch it all before I have a valid opinion. But have you guys seen it?
No, never heard of it.
It's about a young boy in the apocalypse who's born half deer, half boy. Loads of kids are born half animals. And the comic is horrific. It is so brutal. And the TV show is kind of nice. And you're like, oh. So I'm going to wait until the end before I just condemn it. But yeah, like I say, I've not started something with such mixed emotions from the get-go. It's a new one for me.
What channel is it on? Where do people watch Sweet Tooth?
Netflix. No, it's on there.
Whisper it.
Yes, no. Very good. Well, there we go. And tuning in or dialing in quite literally on the dial-up, tuning in on the Internet Explorer, Mr. Grant Hutchison, all the way from...
I'm doing none of those things. But yeah, thanks for having me. What's happening this week? I've got a busy week with restock. I've got lots of new exciting things arriving. Probably most exciting is a shipment from the US that don't know where it's been, on an ocean somewhere for like 2.5 months, and it's finally going to be in my warehouse tomorrow.
Has it come from the East Coast or the West Coast of the USA?
It's come from the East Coast, but there was just so many delays with boring things, ports being busy, customs being congested and
not bribable enough, or
not really for
Shame.
2 pallets
Will
of
you
cider.
accept my Brexit Britain cash?
Yeah. So yes, there are Eve's new Albie Hill 2019 and a new foraged wild fermented cider called Emerald Necklace.
Hang on. So is this the follow up to Derrida?
I guess sort of, but it's not. Derrida was from one location, and Emerald Necklace is an area in the Finger Lakes region. So that they've actually picked. They've got these apples from a variety of locations within that area. So it's a bit of a wider net of fruit, but I guess essentially it's in a similar sort of space as that. Which is
does that mean that the amount of apples that they stole, and it is stealing, right? But the amount of apples they stole for the first one, there was only a couple sacks they carried on their back. Does that mean that the supply of this, there's more of this jingly jangly bad boy?
there seems to be. I have more of it than I did of the Derrida anyway, so
Yes.
so that's exciting.
Right, that's me broke for the
that's
summer.
you. Yeah, definitely. No mates rates here.
I didn't even know we were mates. That's
Oh
news.
yeah,
There you go.
no, I do
mates.
consider you a mate. Yeah,
Added me as a mate on MySpace for your old internet.
Top
Jesus
8.
Christ.
top 8.
Top 8.
All right. Well, that's it for our opening gambits. Now let's see what's happening in the news. And now, here at Cider Hotel, it's time for the latest news in the wonderful world of cider. What's juicy this week? Martin, tell us.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what's juicy. On mashed.com, what everyone gets wrong about hard cider, according to Angry Orchard's Ryan Burke. And this is apparently exclusive. But I just like the idea that like there's a list of things that people get wrong. And like, first off, just for me here, just still reading hard cider, it's just why not cider? Like I still can't get over that kind of element with it with the UK and US.
Well, it's something rooted back at like nigh on 100 years ago around Prohibition, which is when booze was outlawed. Cider was as we talked about numerous times, was a big drink, especially in the Northeast in New England. And then unlike the distilleries and the breweries which kind of went underground, it's quite hard to hide an orchard. They're a little bit out there. A little bit observable.
What's under that blanket over there, sir?
Yeah, that 5-acre blanket. So the trees got burned or chopped down, a lot of them, and then that, especially those that were not very pleasant for eating or for juice, and those that were left over. Yeah, so the concept of just sort of fresh pressed juice kind of like was the substitute, was the non-alcoholic substitute. And so the term cider was kind of appropriated to that. And then when Prohibition ended, it was, the term cider had been sort of solidified in terms of what that meant. And so the hard prefix was added on. And that's kind of where it has stayed and remained for decades. And it's only now in the last 10 years or so that we've had this fantastic resurgence of cider making and numbers of cider makers and awareness and appreciation of cider that has been from industry top down, American Cider Association down, a really big drive to try and get the hard bit kind of removed and to be harmonized with the rest of the cider world, because cider is that fermented drink, and it does sometimes pose some challenges elsewhere in the world.
Is there any other drinks like that have that? I know we've got hard seltzer now, but you don't have like grape juice is grape juice, wine is wine. Could they not just kept saying apple juice?
I would say recently, maybe in the last decade, Mike's Hard Lemonade was a thing they were trying to push, right?
The term hard in the USA has obviously been that which is applied to those things that have alcohol, where the alcohol is kind of front and center of what the purpose of that is. But culturally, that never got extended over to the UK in any way. And in fact, when things started to pick up a little bit, in that US kind of cider scene, Healy's, which is a Cornish cider maker, they produced their Texan style hard cider.
No.
What? What are they? What was that? Is that the sound of the press? Or?
It's a very fast gunfight, yeah.
Why is there
Are you just playing GTA over there whilst we chat?
That was either GTA, maybe Al Capone with like some of those machine guns, or yeah, a little bit World War II. I was expecting more kind of like Smith & Wesson kind of pistols. Like, pa-chow, pa-chow.
Oh boy, how about this?
That's a bit.
Sounds a bit just sort of shooting range. Cop.
Glock.
Yeah.
It's a Colt 45.
Colt 45.
I don't know what that is.
Classic American.
I actually Googled a number of American guns.
Yeah, and
did. Colt 40. Damn it, Colt was one of them. Could it have been a Derringer pistol, possibly? Or definitely didn't sound like a Winchester rifle. That's old school, isn't it?
That's very old school.
Maybe if we're going down the cider pun route, what about a Magnum 44? See what I did there? See what I did there? Anyway, we've gone on a slight gun tangent, which was not necessarily the primary focus of this piece.
Well, the piece itself, like without spoiling it, I'll give some of them. That they talk about hard cider is not beer and it's not wine, and it uses specific cider apples. And the other one, the history behind Angry Orchard's name and its best-selling cider. So there's loads to read there. And I mean, we're all fans of Angry Orchard here. And the cider's great. So if you want to learn more about kind of the challenges that American cider facers make, cider facers make? Cider makers face.
Cider face.
And the cider facers make will do that. See, everybody. He says,
I didn't actually get to the point. Point of the Texan hard cider, which is that somebody made a complaint that the hard element of Texan style hard cider, A, emphasized the alcoholic strength, and B, denoted condoning strength and violence, and the Portman Group didn't hold up the second part. It doesn't incite violence, but they did think that it held up the fact that it was overemphasizing the strength, and so they had to change it. And in fact, I do believe that the brand didn't make it very, very much longer. So even if somebody did want to put a hard cider brand into the UK, there is a precedent for the fact that it would be asked to remove that name from the label. So
I was trying to think of once post-prohibition hard cider makers scrambling around to be like, oh fuck, we're gonna have to call it something else then, and what could you call it? If you've got to come up with a new word for cider because the soft drinks company's taking it. You're like, okay, if someone could see into the future, like, guys, in the future we're gonna have a real problem with this hard thing, so let's just start a new word. Martin, what's your word?
Remulant.
Good, good one.
Good.
Gabe.
I'm going Magimalus.
Oh, Magimalus.
Yeah. This seems right. I mean, we got the malice bit in there. Feels good.
Does seem
like a Winchester rifle in the hand, just neat, straight, direct, and true.
Yeah, I think that's the winner. That's the winner for me.
Winchester rifle.
We've got 21 gun salute. Yeah,
that's it for the news.
Well, let's shoot this section down. Yeah, fucking hell.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this week's news. As informative as it was, as ever. Now it's on to our chat and tasting with the wonderful Polly Hilton from Find and Foster. Here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time for our interview. And today we're chatting with the co-founder of one of the most highly acclaimed cider makers in the UK today. Working alongside her husband, today's guest seeks to find rare varieties in old Devonshire orchards and creates drinks using specialised techniques such as bottle fermentation and keeving to showcase the value of this amazing heritage. That's right, checking into the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's Polly Hilton from Find and Foster.
Hey.
Woo! Polly,
hello.
Polly,
Hi.
welcome to the hotel.
Hello.
Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. And well, what we often do is just sort of dive into conversation about how cider makers are doing or what they're doing, but what we rarely do, which we'd like to do in this occasion, is to understand, let's go back to the beginning. And how is it that you and your lovely husband Matt have gone on this journey and adventure to find these amazing orchards and varieties and to make these exceptional ciders? How did it all start?
Well, I never really know where to start with that because there's quite a few contributing factors. But I did used to have a job that I found quite boring in an office, but it was in animal nutrition.
That helps normally.
I really wanted to do something new, but I got a place on an EU-funded study tour to Tuscany that was about slow food, and it was about kind of looking at how Tuscany and slow food does really well at kind of giving its produce value. And on that trip, but two things kind of led to what I ended up doing. One was talking to a guy who just said that he was involved in neglected orchards a neglected orchard in Herefordshire. And he said that he just was looking after it. And there were all these orchards that farmers didn't know how to look after and they didn't have the time. So I just thought, well, if that happens in Herefordshire, I wonder if that happens in Devon, because just kind of having a vague idea of the kind of heritage of orchards in Devon. And then also a conversation just about what could we do in Devon as well as they do in Tuscany, because there's all this incredible produce and farming and agriculture in Tuscany, and just kind of thought, well, cider is probably one of those. And so came back and started really researching orchards and looking into just the state of traditional orchards in Devon, and looked at a few reports that kind of said how many have been lost and kind of touched on the why and the state that the orchards that were remained were in. And so I kind of came up with the idea that, well, maybe there's this incredible resource that I could use to, make something, look after the orchard in return for the apples. So it wasn't always going to be cider, but I just started talking to the owners and kind of dropping letters and saying, would you be up for letting me look after the orchard in return for the apples? And then from there, really, I had to come up with how to make that economically viable and just sustainable in a way that I was just going to be able to keep doing it. Because basically at the moment, those orchards don't really pay for themselves very well. So come up with an idea that would make it possible to look after the orchards and make something really good from them. So that's how it started. And I had no idea how to make cider. And which is really relative to when we talk about saison pomme, that kind of cidery cider I really didn't understand. So yeah, it's been an interesting one.
You mentioned saison pomme. We've all got a bottle. Should we open it? I haven't opened mine yet, so does everyone else.
Nice. There we go.
So this is such a kind of cidery cider relative to the other ciders we've made. So it's not really.
How would you describe, if this is a cidery cider? How would you describe your other ciders, which are probably the predominance in terms of their range and numbers that you produce, right?
Yeah. So what I noticed about the other ciders is they are very approachable to people who say they don't like cider. So very often people who say, oh no, I don't drink cider, you'll give them a champagne method or Kiev or the Pet Nat, and they will go, oh, well, I don't drink cider, but I'll drink this. Because it's not really typical cider. It doesn't have the kind of funkiness or the brettiness or any of those kind of things that people associate with cider. Whereas this came into, so Saison Pomme kind of came into being because taking on different orchards, we don't really have a choice over what apples we end up using. So we just try and make the very best of the apples we have. So this was taking on an orchard that had loads of bittersweet cider apples that give you those really kind of funky, just really kind of pungent, funky, farmhousey, horse blankety aromas, especially if you let them kind of ferment really slowly over a really long time, with no kind of temperature control and no added yeast and no sulfite. So you just get all this funkiness that really wouldn't suit the champagne method, and it wouldn't suit the Pet Nat, and it wouldn't suit the Kiev. Well, actually, maybe it could go in the Kiev, but these apples ripen too early in the season. And with Kieving, you can only use the apples that are perfectly ripe at the very end of the season. So, yeah, this was just apples that didn't suit the other ciders. And to begin with, it was kind of like, well, what do you do with that?
What do you do with that?
So you already said that you didn't come from a cider background, but you're now talking with, a lot of knowledge and expertise about it. Did you literally just learn
I'm
on the
amazed
job?
it comes across like that, because it doesn't feel like it.
It's the imposter syndrome that we all feel from time to time. Maybe it's something that's very pertinent to cider, and that none of us feel that we have the expertise, even if the produce in this case definitely would demonstrate otherwise. So, yeah, sorry, carry on as before.
But yeah, so in answer to Scott, definitely what really helps is just being able to make your own mistakes and just being the one that's not being told what to do. You can try whatever you want to try, and you can cook up, and there's not really any kind of consequence. So you can just learn so much through cooking up, which is nice. or not, and reading and reading and trying stuff and
doing it well and repeating it.
Let's talk about trying stuff and cocking up. But as a drink, I remember with this Saison Pomme, the carbonation in this is much more gentle than the first time I tried it.
Is there a
story there?
Yeah, well, it's not that interesting a story, but did you get a bottle of Saison Pomme where the cap just flew 10 miles when you took it off?
Yeah, I got punched in the face by your cider. Yeah,
Did you actually? Oh my God, thank God it was you, not someone who's going to sue me. Or maybe you're just biding your time.
The collateral damage of the cider industry that is Martin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
We'll take it for the team, don't worry.
Putting the shit in cider shit. But no, let's take it back seriously to this though. But like the carbonation is much more gentle in this. It's almost it's playing almost closer to still, which is completely different from everything.
I think it works better less. I feel like the carbonation before detracted from what was actually happening, and it wasn't what you expected. But that was a mistake. That is a mystery and a mistake. But it just meant that this time we were really, really cautious and went undercarbonated by the navel cutting. So Pet Nat, so you bottle it towards just close to the end of fermentation. So you get the very end of the fermentation happen in the bottle, and you don't know. You kind of expect an SG, so the residual sugar, to end at 1. But with the other Saison Pomme, it must have just gone way below 1, which is really surprising. So it must have just been like 998 or something, which does happen. But that was just really surprising. Yeah, it was way too carbonated before, but this is much less.
Yeah, I think this really suits the Saison Pomme, the carbonation in it. And
good.
The fact that, and it's slowly even losing carbonation, which I think is nice as well. It's it's a very rustic drink compared to...
Rustic is definitely the word, yeah.
Well, guys, Saison Pomme, what are we saying? What are we thinking? For me, like Grant said it rustic, but I mean, this iteration is just so gluggable. That's the first. It's almost like with Little Pomona's table cider of like, you can dissect it if you want, but I'm trying to slow down on the bottle because it's so moreish. Like the tannins are soft, there's structure, but like it's just nice red apple skin, juicy. It's just it's absolutely
juicy.
crushable.
Definitely. It does have quite a decent chunk of the sort of phenolic Bretty. It's like it's a lovely ex-race horse who's done really well and has then
about
retired.
to go to the glue factory.
No, but doesn't go to the glue factory because lovely Polly gives it somewhere to just frolic around for the rest of its days instead of being turned into Pritt stick. So it does have, you know, quite a bit of that. But
weirdest metaphor, Gabe. Weirdest metaphor.
But it stays on the line of that, you know, in line with some of those Belgian beers that are really kind of wild, which, you know, have these kind of like spicy, funky kind of characters without being pooey in any way. There is no poo here, no horse poo, no road apples. There's a link in from a previous episode. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I like it.
Good Lord.
Polly, you don't get complimented like this all the time, do you? There's no poo here. Fucking
It's like a horse that's supposed to be put out to pasture, but isn't quite put out to pasture.
Maybe I should be put out to pasture.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
But it has that, and I think I was mentioning before you came on, Polly, about the label as well, and I love that how it really, I think, really encapsulates what it is and what it's about.
Oh,
you know,
good. Thank you so much. Because the last time I heard you lot talking about the label, you were all slagging it off, weren't you?
that label.
Yeah, Grant, you were going to town, baby.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Not me.
I think you'll find, Polly, there was one person. No, the one thing I said, and it's what I wanted to talk to you about today, actually. So thank God you're here. Thank God you're here in the podcast. But it's so different from the other ciders in your range. Like, it clearly looks different. And it's not, I don't really want to know much about that. I want to know why you thought for the podcast you were going to bring on the one that doesn't fit in with the rest of your whole range.
Just because we're about to release it next week. So
it's just a shameless plug.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Well, why not?
Well, for listeners at home, it tastes like a horse about to be put out to pasture. So
No, it's not true.
No, but go on. Sorry, Polly.
No, I did also think it would be a nice opportunity to explain why it's so, to kind of defend the, like, why did they just stick a random label on that one kind of thing. It is because I really don't want people to...
She's remembered the critique as well.
I don't know.
Such a quote!
I don't want people who've drunk the champagne method and they've drunk the Kiev or the Pet. Now, I don't want them to try Saison Pomme or to kind of approach that cider thinking it's going to be the same as the others, because the others are all about kind of delicate aromas. It's about kind of fruity and floral aromas, and for the people who might not particularly like cider but might be won over. Whereas this is, for people who I've noticed really liking this, are kind of hardcore beer nerds and cider fans. So it's for the people who like cider and beer, and I didn't want anyone to be disappointed to find that when they try that.
Well, the fermentation is like a big character in it. You can smell all those phenolics, like Gabe's saying. But like, as a contrast, for anyone that's listening that hasn't had it, but like for me, I think the Huxham blend from you guys is one of the best drinks I've ever had. And every time I've had it, I've just been like absolutely in love with it, because it's quite a simple drink. But its simplicity isn't because it's easy to make or anything like that. It's just so clean and gorgeous. And every time I'm just like, fucking hell, this is just, it commands the price it is. Like, it is not a problem to spend money on your ciders because it just tastes fucking sublime, mate.
Oh, thanks. You sucking up now.
Yeah. I was actually wanting to talk go back to something you said about the value of cider, and that kind of leads on to that quite nicely. And I think that's a bit of a problem in cider, is the undervaluing of it, and it goes all the way to cider makers doing that as well. They're undervaluing their own product and the skill and the work and the craft that goes into it.
That is a massive problem, and it's often because people who make cider are retired and they don't need to make a profit. They don't need to be able to charge what their cider is owed, because they don't need to. But yeah, and also just because they've kind of been taught over the past 100 years that it's not worth much, which is a shame, because it's the exact same process as wine. You get that one shot and you get that one harvest, and it's 100% real fruit. It's not like brewing where you could do it and it would take 2 weeks and then it's ready and you can just buy in some more hops and grain and whatever and make more. So yeah, I think it's really difficult to make people value it enough.
Is it in the education then that of telling that story that's going to make that change happen?
Yeah, I think education's a massive part of it, because people don't have any idea how it's made or what it is with cider, do they? So education's massive. But then also it's just cider makers valuing it themselves. Obviously, it's not going to happen if you don't value it yourself. Yeah.
But then so often they're kind of scared of the price it's going to be as well, and that kind of thing of, oh well, if I put another pound on this, then it's probably not going to sell, and I guess that the whole chain of having faith in the people that you sell it to, who are then selling it on for you, like Felix for you guys, and me for other people. But like it is having that knowledge right through the whole chain that I think is important.
Definitely. Yeah, it really is. That kind of communication is really important.
I think there's quite a lot of smaller cider makers of the more sort of traditional brigade who actively want cider to be a cheaper drink. An everyman's drink is the phrase that has been sort of put to me on a few occasions. And certainly the very first time that I met you, Polly, was just about coming up to nearly 5 years ago. And it was a meeting, possibly an AGM of the South West of England Cider Makers Association, down like at Blandford Forum somewhere in the Arches, basically. That's where it was. There were quite a number of sort of hair shirt wearing folk, quite old traditionalists, basically to a person, men. And then you stood up at the back and I can't remember exactly what it was that you said, but certainly you stood out from the crowd because the fact that you were under 140 years old, and of course that you were a woman as well, and it was fascinating to see people not necessarily sort of understanding or wondering. You could see in some people's eyes sort of potentially even sort of judging as to what sort of level of experience or what did did you have? But what has your sort of reaction amongst the cider community been as somebody who is new and young and giving such a different approach to the cider making?
It's actually been so positive. It's really nice. I love the cider community and everyone I've met, and it's such a nice place to work. Like, it's all the old boys who've helped me are just they've been really supportive, and no one's really made it difficult at all. Which definitely happens in other industries, but like Martin Buckley and Tom Oliver, not that they're that old, but yeah, they've all been really
old exclusive
on record. Polly Hilton thinks Tom Oliver is old.
Brilliant. They've been really helpful, really supportive, and just really open. And yeah, I haven't had any challenges coming in as a female at all.
Good. Also at that meeting, you brought along a bottle of, if I remember rightly, 80-year-old cider. Does my memory serve me correctly? Can you remember that?
Yeah, because of a local guy, John Horrell, who we first met because I was trying to find a barn to make cider in. And actually he showed us his, and it would have been so cheap, but there was just bird poo everywhere. And it needed too much work. It was never going to be clean enough. So we didn't rent a barn from
You're
him.
the one cider maker
Yeah,
that
I know.
would say that.
Everyone's like, oh, I don't have to pay for the share. Oh, excellent, look at that. I get it for free.
Birchit's where I leave the bottles, mate. That's where I mark it out. So old boy had this shit shed.
Yeah, which we didn't. Matt actually ended up renting it to build a little boat in, but we didn't rent that for the cider. We found somewhere else. But anyway, got to know John Horrell, who is so lovely, and he's probably in his 80s, and his family had Horrell Cider, which were one of the big cider makers about 100 something years ago. Really big cider makers in this area. And he found in his shed ciders that had been bottled when his older brother was born. I think it was his dad had made this special cider as a celebration. Anyway, so it had like really old-fashioned corks with homemade wire muzzles over the top. And they'd just been lying in a shed for 80 odd years. So I just thought it'd be interesting for people to try it. So I took it along to that meeting and then gave one to Felix to take to a tasting he was doing at Lyle's, so more people could taste it and see what happens to well-made cider after 80 years, which was so fascinating. Did you try it, Gabe?
Yeah. What happens?
I did. It was not.
Tell her what you told me, Gabe.
It was shit. No, it was. It wasn't vinegary. It was just pure sherry. It was just oxidized
wasn't it? It was
to
like
heck.
Madeira.
But the air hadn't got into it, so it hadn't turned to vinegar. It was drinkable. It was just engine oil, but lovely, lovely engine oil.
Well, we spoke then about someone who thinks that cider sheds aren't good enough for cider, but they're good enough to make boats in. Can you can you tell us what it's like working with your lovely, handsome partner?
So helpful. Yeah, really good. We're a really good team. It's really nice working together because Matt does a hell of a lot and just sorts out all the technical stuff I'm crap at, and also has incredibly good nose and is good at tasting stuff. And it's also really nice when you're making cider to have a guy and a woman taste the same thing, because you taste things so differently, and it gives you a really interesting insight into how someone else might perceive something. Yeah, it's good.
Have you ever had a drink where you've had opposite reactions to it, where you've been like,
I always.
or rather you've not said what you think and then the other person's face is like, oh no?
Always have such different reactions, which is why I'm usually reluctant to write tasting notes on bottles, because I just think very often tasting notes are such a personal perception of a drink, because I see that happen all the time. Every time Matt and I taste a cider from a tank or a bottle or a finished bottle, we both taste such different things that I think it can be kind of silly sometimes writing tasting notes on things.
That's for other people to do. Like that's for Martin will do it for you.
That's true.
His job.
So what's what have you got coming up? What's
So coming up, we've got
coming next.
The cider-wise, things have just been so slow because it's been such a cold spring that all the things we would usually have bottled or released by now have just been really slowly kind of fermenting imperceptibly slowly and not getting ready to bottle, or if we bottled them already, like Saison Pomme, they're just not as finished as we would expect them to be now. But Saison Pomme is, so I think after a week in a warm shop is going to be finished. So we are going to release it next week. But so after Saison Pomme, there's a Pet Nat, which the aim was just to try and make something that was really, really fruity and to try and kind of just get across how amazingly aromatic and fruity and tropical these apples were. So we did the skins thing, which So in this case, there was a tree, this really unusual variety in the old orchard I was talking about on the Hugh Stafford estate, that when you kind of bit into and smelt this apple, it just had the strongest kind of mango-y aromas. So with that, we'd started a fermentation with kind of moderate to high acidity, and so milled these apples and put them into this just started fermentation in this giant tea bag that we made out of a pressed cloth, and just kind of kept punching it down. So it's similar to how you would make an orange wine. And we do always do like a test bottle before you put the skins in, and then one after you've taken them out, and then put more skins in and did the same thing again. And it is incredible how much that works. I mean, if anyone was to say it doesn't work, if you just taste what happens through that period, it works so well. So with that, it's pet nat. We bottled it. We racked it quite a few times to try and keep some residual sugar to kind of keep that fruitiness, but really wanted it to be almost dry, but to still have a really fruity nose. So that is going to come out soon. It's just needs to do its very last bit of fermentation in the bottle. And that cider is called Alan, because we did a Instagram competition.
You've got such a delicate voice and such a delicate way of telling stories, and then you just end it with like, and that's called Alan.
I've got a bike called Alan. It's fucking beautiful.
Have you?
I do have a bike called Alan.
She's named a cider after it, mate. Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
Well, no, who we did name our cider after was a guy who we did an Instagram. So this was completely Matt's idea, and I liked it. So we did an Instagram competition where whoever won the competition, we just named the cider after them, and they got a case of it. So a guy called Alan won. So it's
brilliant.
That's so good.
He got
That is brilliant.
Yeah. It's nice because we didn't have to come up with a name.
Maybe this is the way forward for all of your ciders hereafter.
No, because she's going to have to give a fucking case away of every cider. They're not going to have any left. There was one cider you released where I saw it. It was online. It was like, oh, there's a new cider we've released. There's only 6 bottles. And I was like, fuck off. Where's the rest? What do you mean there's only 6? I remember being furious, like, oh, cool. Well, I'll try that then. Like, that hype in beer is accepted because you're like, oh, yeah, they're obviously doing it. But when like the coolest kids are making 6 bottles, you're like, surely this can't be a profitable thing to make just 6 bottles of one batch.
So what happened with that was every time we make a champagne method, we keep some back we just age it over the years. So since 2015, we've got champagne methods in small batches that we've just had in the cellar, just to see what happens when it ages. Because no one really knows with cider because it hasn't been done for a long time. So
just not for
you're not
8
going to
years.
know unless you just do it yourself. So we occasionally get one out and taste it just to see how it's developed and see what's happened. So that was one we just took out of the kind of storage and tasted it and thought it was really good. So we sold it to Darts Farm, who are a local farm shop who are just really supportive, and we've really enjoyed working with them. So we just took the 6 bottles there and they just sold them.
And to probably one lucky person. That was a lucky person indeed. So
I think actually George Dart did keep 3 of the 6 bottles himself.
I know.
Martin,
there's no way they made it onto the shelves, right?
let's find George Dart, and I was going to say mug him, but I don't want to sound like we're going to incite violence on the podcast.
No, we're going to kill him.
That's right. There we go.
No, I thought you were going to say kill him. I mean, if there's 3 bottles there, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. If it was just 1 mug, 3 kill. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the guns come out. I think probably the machine gun's more appropriate for this one.
Dear. Scott's having fun with the soundboard. Polly, tell us, as sort of bring our conversation to a close, tell us about, the rest of 2021. What events or activities or maybe even books you're possibly looking forward to for the rest of the year? Tell us what's exciting for you.
Well, what I'm really excited about is what we've just started doing, a monthly tour and tasting with lunch at the cidery. And it's such an idyllic setting, and it's really nice to bring people to it, and also to give people an opportunity just to try a glass of each of our ciders, because often you might not, if you don't really know cider that much, you might not want to spend the amount of money that our bottles are on a bottle, like on a whole bottle, because it's a risk. So it's a nice opportunity just to try a glass of each. And the orchard's beautiful, and you all probably know I don't love big public speaking in big groups. So Debbie Warner of the Wild Wine School, Debbie Warner is hosting it. So me and Matt just do the drinks and the food and the kind of background stuff. And Debbie Warner kind of hosts everyone, walks them around the orchard and talks to them about orchards and cider, and orchards and apples, and goes into the cidery and talks about the ciders, and you see kind of how everything works, and then go out and have a lunch outside in the orchard, and it's really nice. So we've only done one so far, but it was brilliant, and it was just the perfect weather, which was really nice. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing them more. We're doing them once a month now, and yeah.
And any books?
Yeah. I actually can't remember what yours is called.
Okay, well, don't worry.
Il Mondo del Cidro. That's what it's called.
That's the Italian version of the old one. I was
Ciderology by Gabe.
I was obviously doing a gratuitous plug for modern British cider. Anyway, Polly, that's not so important. But what is important is for anybody who's listening who doesn't know where to find out more details about you. What's your website address? What are your social media handles?
Our website is findandfosterfindciders.com, and our Instagram is @findcider, which I do regret sometimes. It's a long time ago since I made that.
You really
But I think Find and Foster was too long, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, it's not the easiest to find, I don't think.
It's better than if it was like find_and_foster_cider.
Yeah, that's true.
But like when you when I see it and it's like find cider, it's like, well, I found it. Like, well, this is shit. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
The whole Instagram is.
So anyway, yeah, thanks for taking your time out of your day for Martin to slag you off.
Oh God, I'm not the one who didn't like the branding grant, so don't throw me in it.
And I'm the one who says that your cider smells like a soon-to-be dead horse. Polly, thank you so much for joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. We hope you've had a good time. We certainly have. And good luck for the rest of the year. Hope all the ciders come on just nicely. Good luck with the Saison Pomme launch. And hopefully we will be seeing you at the Cider Salon in a few months' time. Not long to go.
That was on the tip of my tongue. I was about to say I was looking forward to that, by the way.
That's okay. Yeah. We'll let you off. We knew it.
Couldn't remember what it was called.
Yeah. The Cider Saloon. So, we'll sail to you, Polly. Thank you so much, and love to Matt. And look forward to tasting more of your ciders and seeing you in the not too distant future. Cheers.
Cool. Nice to see you all.
Right, now it is time here at the Neutral Cider Hotel for our listener voicemails. Speak piping, I think we might be this week. Martin, what have we got this week?
So, based on last week's episode of the fruit cider, we've basically had a couple questions on the speak pipe related to it. So first off, this one is from Timothy J.
I think, like most people who listen to this podcast, I avoid fruit ciders like the plague. They just tend to be, too sweet and overwhelm the apples. But there are definitely exceptions. I won't pretend I'm not partial to the odd cherry cider here and there, and definitely a quince cider too. That, certainly is much more on par with apples only ciders. But otherwise, I've had a lot of fun playing around with using cherry juice and also pomegranate juice as part of the tirage for bottle conditioning. That to me has a similar result to esters created through fermentation when you get ciders tasting like oranges or pineapples, or even Belgian beers that taste a bit like banana and tropical fruit. But I think, like anything, if it's well made by someone that we all respect, I think we should definitely be open to it. As a community and as producers, we need all the help we can get, right?
And next up, we have a question from Turdlinger.
Hi guys, Teun Durlinger here, also known as Turdlinger, cider maker at Evenveld Cidery in the Netherlands. I wanted to get back to you on fruited ciders and why they're awesome. One of our most popular ciders is plum cider. It's a spontaneous fermented cider to which we've added whole plums after fermentation and we leave them in for 3 months. We also add cherries, medlars, mulberries, blackberries and blueberries to some of our ciders. It gives depth, more complexity, and with the Dutch apples we use, mostly sharp, it can bring balance to the product. As the great Tom Oliver once said, if it grows together, it goes together. That's why we will never add pineapple to our cider or other foreign fruits like guava, but we do like to explore the possibilities of the whole orchard. Cheers to you, wassail, or as they say in the Netherlands, proost.
So, guys, Timothy and Turdlinger both mentioned cherries there. Turdlinger brought up the plums. And also he mentioned our very famous Tom Oliver from the Bedroom Sessions. What grows together goes together. So what are we thinking about, I guess, natural fruit ciders rather than the fruit concoctions that we tried last week?
Well, it's quite an interesting concept, isn't it? About the idea that, again, helps to talk about the fact that not all flavored ciders are the same and not all fruit ciders are the same, that there is not only from a taste profile do all of these the different fruits have a different impact, but also the sort of scale and the ideology of the producer. But maybe there is a difference between fruits being added to the cider that are sort of cooler, temperate growing. So whether it hedgerow, like what grows together goes together. Maybe there is something about the sensory matching together those works better, or just from an ideological point of view that is it more justifiable to add cherries or blackberries or plums which you would get in the same places as apples. I can understand. I understand that kind of approach, but a little bit more challenging when you're in somewhere like, in parts of Australia or in parts of the world where the climate is quite different, and you do get the opportunity to have slightly more like exotic fruits. I've been to Queensland. There's avocados and bananas. We haven't had many avocado flavored ciders yet.
I've been to Queensland. I'm a slightly travelled individual man.
It won't be long though. Won't be long before we have fucking guacamole cider, right?
So Tom Grant, what are you saying about those kind of natural fruit ciders?
So by natural fruit ciders, do you mean, because I think it's about the fermentation, right? So what I mean in that within realms as well, you've brought some in. I think brutes are a great example of that. Like even the apples, pears, and then the co-ferment of it is like, let's ferment what we've got here rather than just like, let's add additives of strawberry and lime. Exactly, right. So the point of cider being the fact that it's apples fermented, and then if you're going to then take that cider, that fermented apple, and just add fresh flavoring or fresh juice to it to make it more palatable or more easy drinking or sweeter, that doesn't necessarily interest me. But if you're talking about then having things that are co-fermented, or you're making fruit wines and you're making apple wine, you're making apple cider, and then you're blending those things together, that's super interesting, and that's I think a kind of something that does and would excite me. Or you're macerating the cider with fruit or fruit skins or something like that. But I think the adding of flavouring isn't necessarily something that excites me.
Quite interesting what
Grant just said.
Mr. Derlinger was talking about in terms of the plums, because that is an actual orchard fruit. Okay, it's a stone fruit rather than what we call like a pip fruit or a top fruit. But there is also, plums are sort of classically grown in and around my village, the mighty Dimmock. Dimmock has a cider apple, a peri pear, and a plum named after it. In fact, they are all three Dimmock Red. And
Dimmock Red triumvirate.
Indeed, of the fruits. And there is a fermented plum drink from, made in Gloucestershire. It's not solely done in Gloucestershire. Its name, Plum Jerkum.
Ooh. Well, let's look at it this way. For, I guess, the cider side of it, as a drink, those kind of co-ferments, or like you're saying, Grant, that kind of like fermenting individually and then blending afterwards. The thing is to make something drinks-wise that has structure. And I think that kind of, there's a texture that sort of cherry wine or like plum wine has that plays differently to tannins. And the same as blackberries. If you ferment blackberries into a blackberry wine, it has this weird texture, almost similar to like it's in between red wine and cider. Like it sits right on the tongue in an interesting way. And if you mix that with something that's like, say, high acid, bright, or sort of a stopped ferment, so there's sweetness there to bring that fruit back, you end up with a whole new thing. What we want to avoid are drinks where they're just, here's that, it tastes a bit shit, let's put fruit in on top of it. Whereas what you can get is expressions of the fruit. It doesn't have to be apples. What we want to drink are drinks that are expressions of their kind of region, really.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. We hope that has given some insight into our opinion on the world of fruit cider. Big thanks to Timothy J. and to Mr. Derlinger himself from the Netherlands. Apparently the Netherlands' only full-time professional cider maker. Amazing. Thank you very much for your...
Really?
Apparently so.
And I called him Turdlinger.
I know.
And he called himself that
so
too.
sorry. Yeah, no, he leaned into the turd, and again, I'm sorry about it.
Thank you very much for your comments. And if anybody else, if you've got burning questions that need to be answered, you can get in touch with us. Reach out and leave us a voicemail with your questions and comments at speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel. You can have your words heard and responded to, just like we've had this evening. So there we go. That wraps things up for this week's show. Thank you again to Polly for a fantastic conversation. She really is one of the shining lights of British cider making. And if you enjoy our podcast and want to help, then please do spread the word about the Neutral Cider Hotel. Tell your friends, your family, somebody on the street, and encourage them all to listen to our fantastic podcast. You can also follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast app. It really, really, really does help. And please find and follow us on the social media. We're at Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram and Facebook, and also Neutral Cider Pod on Twitter. And as always, you can visit us on our website or listen online or share episodes at neutralciderhotel.com. Thanks for listening to our show. We'll see you next time. Cheers, what's out?